Whether it's in a room of 5 people or a room of 20,000, there's always somebody that needs to hear the message you're about to say. I look for that person in the crowd.
It's reinventing yourself every time. The greats know how to reinvent themselves in each era.
The main thing for us is that the music has to be like perfect. Right?
Yeah.
If the music's great, you can get away with anything.
Music was always an outlet to be able to express the things that were scary to express. When I make an album, that's part of what I'm doing too, is helping people express things.
We sold over 100 million records independently. We did everything that they say we couldn't do.
I've got to know you a little bit the last few years, us corresponding back and forth. And I just didn't realize how open you were about this word pressure you use, which may be self-imposed. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, both.
Talk a little bit about your journey with that, your anxiety. I mean, you even had some panic attacks from time to time, right? Like, what is that, and how have you dealt with it?
Well, I am definitely a recovering perfectionist, for sure. I am definitely somebody who's trying my best to give myself a little bit more grace and respect in my life through the years, because it's also made me successful, but it's really beaten me down. You know what I mean? It's just like, man, there were points in my career and in my life where, when you first moved to Nashville, I've always thought of it as like Disney World, like everything just feels magical and you see all the amazing things and it's beautiful and everything's magic and nobody's going to stop you. And then you get a peek behind the curtain and you see all the things that crank, and it's just like, it kind of jades you a little bit, it kind of jolts you a little bit, and it kicks you back. And so I really had to learn, once the business frame came in and the pressures and everything, it kind of took away my soul a little bit. And I was getting ready to go on stage, and instead of just going up there and singing, and there'd be a point when I first started where I wouldn't even think about my voice. I wouldn't think about how good I had to be. I was just me. And then the pressures of life piled on, and you got to sound just like your records. In my head, I'm telling myself that. No one was really even telling me that, but I'm telling myself that. Yeah. And I got to the point where I'd almost pass out on stage. I would sit on the back of my bus and just like wait all day till the show was going on. I was just a mess. And nobody knew it though, because when you saw me, I was smiling and I was on social media all the time. I was doing all these things, and I had this persona as like the most laid back, chill guy. And I really am that guy in some ways, but I'm also like, really quiet and introverted and not always that guy. And I was always playing off as that thing. And those pressures really got to me. And I would get into panic stage, and then I would have to go in front of, 10,000 people. And once I got into the show, I loosened up a little bit, but there was a while where I was white knuckle on the microphone stand, like holding on to it. I'm only in the 3rd song and I'm worn out. Wow. And a lot of the fans didn't know that. And I got to the point where I was like, this is not a way to live. This is not a way I was supposed to love this thing. This is supposed to be my craft. This is supposed to be what I was born to do. I'm feeling like I'm just barely hanging on. And so I had to change. And it took a while though, because, you don't really know. I grew up in a little town called Paris, Illinois, beautiful place to be from. But I didn't know anything about therapy. I didn't know anything. I mean, not that it was the fault of anybody. It just wasn't a big thing. It wasn't like a social thing. And when it was like you go to therapy in the movies and you're laying on a couch and, the whole every scene and or people think you're crazy or something. It's like, and so it took some panic attacks. It took me going on one point. I was on the Today Show, I believe, and I had a panic attack on the Today Show. Nobody knew it. I don't think I've ever even said that, but I said I've had panic attacks, but basically it all triggered from an interview in Scotland. And I was like, I got up, I was jet lagged. I was going one behind another artist. I was feeling comparison, a little bit of the imposter syndrome. I was feeling, probably too many coffees. It's like all these things. And I had a panic attack that triggered me into more panic attacks. Basically, I had it in front of a crowd and nobody knew it. I thought I was going to throw up on stage in front of all these people, just talking, which I'd never had a problem with that in my life. And it was like a car wreck in my head. It was like a very scary experience. And to to only me though, because, but to me, it was as scary as it gets.
What's interesting is that, you know, first off, I told everybody today was going to be remarkable. I just didn't know we are going to go this deep, this quickly.
Yeah, let's go, man.
And I love you, and I appreciate you for doing it, because he's one of the biggest stars in the world. He does not need to tell you these things. And it's an interesting thing. I want to unpack something you said there, because I relate to it. Number one, I have to also be transparent, which is that we have these things, these behaviors we do that we know don't serve us. All of us do, but we've somehow linked doing it in our mind to part of our recipe to success. And we go, if I drop this, maybe everything else goes away. If I drop my stress, if I drop my, you know, this pain I put myself through to get, and it could be a sales call, you know, it could be people that are out there in sales right now. It's this, I got to get into this state where I'm miserable all day until the meeting. And then after the meeting, maybe the meeting's fun. Then after the meeting, there's this down, I'm even more miserable, but guess what? I got the sale. That's part of my formula. And guess what? You know, I got my CMT award. So this must work for me, right? Yet it's this debilitating thing. I was just talking to another, I won't say who, but he's a very, very well-known pastor who's a great orator. And we were both sharing with each other, frankly, this thing that you have as well, that I've had, where we're just like, the pain of doing, the actual doing of the speaking or the singing or the sales call is joyous. It's the before and the after that's just treacherous. It's the self-loathing afterwards. I should have said this. I could have done that. You know, for you, I missed that note or whatever it is. You know, I was off key and you probably really weren't. But so how do we begin to say, well, no, that's probably, I'm actually being successful in spite of this behavior that doesn't serve me? Give us one thing you did where you're like, look, was it just the awareness that you're doing it, or was there a particular strategy?
I did a few different things, and I think it all kind of ties together. For the performances, instead of sitting in my bus all morning, thinking all day about because it's a huge sacrifice of your life to go out there on the road, and you wake up I get up really. I get up early, and then I don't play till 9 o'clock at night. And then I'm just thinking about what that, like you were just saying, that buildup of like all the way to the big moment, whether it's your big sales call or it's whatever. I was only thinking about performing. What's my voice feel like? What's this? You know, what if I pass out on stage? What if this? I was playing the what if games and totally self-doubting, you know, just completely destroying myself and mentally. And so I did a few things. One thing I started to do was I would go out for hikes. I got outside. Honestly, getting outside was a huge thing for me. Prior is like getting out of my head and into my life. The moment I get out of my head and into my life and into like just being is so powerful. And so that was a huge thing for me. So that's a big step of like killing some of the time, or actually not even killing it, but being in moments other than right here. I'm in the woods. I'm looking at these things. I'm playing wiffle ball outside with my band or whatever it is that you might want to do. And then before the shows, I would start a pre-show dance party. So we'd find the craziest song you could think of. Like we'll pick a crazy song and something that's not going to make you take life so serious. And we dance as crazy as we possibly can before the show. And it's so fun. And it really realized just anything to take that nervous energy off and to realize that this is supposed to be fun. You're taking yourself way too damn serious. And
that you just nailed it. I was going to say something. I want to just jump in with you because, you know, you and I have texted about some of these things a little bit too, or DM'd on it as well. Yeah. That's the thing. We all have a tendency to take ourselves too seriously. And I'm talking about everybody, even those of us that, you know, you think, no, I don't do that. I'm just really hard on myself, or I'm down on myself. No, you're taking yourself too seriously and you're creating weight.
Yes.
The bigger deal you think you are, the more weight you're creating in your life. I think one of the huge things you've said so far, one, you're supposed to enjoy it, but two is don't take yourself so seriously. And I think, you know, for people that are going to climb to success too, hey, more and more people taking you seriously can sometimes cause you to take yourself more seriously as well, right? The more success, the more money, maybe the more accolades. And you could just be someone who used to work in another company. Now you're running your own. More people take you seriously now. So you put more weight on you taking yourself seriously.
Absolutely. And I think that this could go for anything too, is when I would get on that stage and I would be in that kind of heightened mode of taking myself so serious. I also learned the craft, and this is through therapy, and this is through just digging in and listening to your show and listening to other people that are, you know, brilliant in this world of helping figure out life, you know, is trying to always learn and grow. And it was like, there's always somebody, whether it's in a room of 5 people or a room of 20,000, there's always somebody that needs to hear the message you're about to say. And I look for that person in the crowd when I'm broken on stage and they don't know it. And when I'm in a tough spot, I look for that person that needs me and I need them. And it's like a connection that is so powerful that it takes me out of my head and it takes me to the reason that the whole reason why I got in this in the first place and why I feel like I'm on this earth.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, wow. I have this thing with you where I don't know whether I don't know how to describe it. If you're gifted and you've worked at your craft, because this voice he has, you guys, is, Brett could have decided he was going to be, sing the blues. He could have done jazz. He could have done, any type of music. His voice is just butter. It's so good. So sometimes I think, well, that was your calling. But the more and more I've listened to you and the more we've communicated, and even today, I'm like, wow, I wonder if your calling is way past even music, because the way you reach people, you have this thing you say, and you just started to touch on it. I wrote it down because I want you to talk about it. You said, we are all put on this earth to connect with one another.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes people go, well, yeah, of course, Brett does. He's in front of millions of people singing and everybody knows him and all that stuff. But me, I work in a cubicle somewhere. I was put to connect with people. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would say, think about some of the most random conversations you've had and tough points in your life, or the little things that just turn your day around just a little bit. I've had some people pull me out of a tough place in my life that are complete strangers, and they had no idea that they pulled me out of a place just by showing up. And I think showing up for that connection. And there's been times in my life where it's a lot easier to stay in that zone of, hey, I can stay in this little box all the time and not go out and connect and not reach out for help and reach out to help. Reaching out to help is just as important as reaching out for help as well. Is like, because you know what it feels like to need that help. And I think just being open to that connection with a stranger, to anybody, and just being there as an open ear. I think that's everything. So as a songwriter, I have that opportunity, a storyteller, to connect with somebody. That's the reason why I do it. It's like these stories, I know somebody needs to hear that story, and it could be a stranger, and I get that opportunity. And it's such a beautiful thing. And that is why I sit down and I write these songs. And that's why I get up there on that stage, even when I sometimes don't feel in the right headspace. When I can really remind myself that really brings me back to it. And it doesn't have to be on stage. It can be anywhere in life.
Something about you that's always struck me. It's you've been successful a long time. And a lot of others, even when I was reading like your background, that's like 30% of it, right? For a long time. And then, we were talking off camera about some mutual friends of ours. What do the people who have won long-term have that, like, especially in the music industry, that flashes in the pan? I know a lot of flashes in the pan as entrepreneurs. They had one hit, they had 4 or 5 good years. You see them 10 years later, and they're kind of back where they were before. Or like you said earlier, they've changed their body, they lost the weight, and you see them 5 years later, like, my gosh, they've gained it back. But you and I know other people. We were talking about Jen Lopez before the show. This woman's been relevant for 25 years. You've been successful,
least, if not more.
If not more, right? What do they have? Because you've known executives that have been there long term. You've known people in all different businesses. Is there something? Is it their work ethic? Is a separator? What do you think it is?
To me, it's all of it, Ed. It's like the people that get it, the people that don't get it. How hard are you willing to work? How bad do you want it? And are you really understanding what you're after? And do you understand how to get that? So Jen gets the whole thing. And we're all very blessed, extremely blessed, but you got to put in the work. And you got to learn what to do. And you also have to learn how to sustain. And remember, you see the Stones have been around 50, 60 years. It's reinventing yourself every time. The greats know how to reinvent themselves in each era.
That is so, I got a chance. So funny that you say that. This is so weird. I was thinking of Jagger when you said that. When I brought up Jen, I just met him. I met him in Pasadena about 6 months ago. And what struck me was I was backstage before the show, and I was struck by how meticulous they all still were with their preparation even.
The attention to detail is mind-numbing. When you look at Prince, Bowie, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, I mean, LeBron, I mean, Steph Curry, when you look at any of these athletes, Tom Brady, any of these guys, their attention to detail, these successful ones, is so unbelievable.
That seems to me to be the separator. And the other piece of it, Randy, I don't know if you've noticed this too. I bet you've seen this in music. You have this huge will to win when you're broke. It's like the heavyweight champion of the world. They have this huge hunger. And then for most people, they get a little bit of success, and that will to win is almost bought. Like there's like a price tag on it, I say. Like you just see that if you weren't paying attention, you might not know, but they just start showing up a little bit later. They don't quite prep like they once did. They're passion level. And it seems like someone like yourself, or even a Simon, I mean, I'm still watching that guy cranking, right? Or like a Jordan when he played, or a Kobe, rest his soul, or a Jen, their will to win almost increases the more successful they become.
Exactly, because guess what? You've achieved this. Now what's next? You want to continue to grow and build and learn. I say to people, I don't know everything. I want to learn every day. I want to explore every day. I'm ambitious every day. Okay, I did that. Now what else can I do? Because you want to become the greater and the best human you can in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So what's pushing you? Is that what's pushing you? If the money's pushing you, that's going to run afoul. So that can't push you. That just genuine spirit of really trying to achieve, and that ambition has to drive you. I get a taste, I want more.
More. That's what's bizarre to me, that doesn't happen to most people. And I think part of it is, I'll give you a compliment. People I've met over the years that knew both of us have always commented to me about what you just said, a genuinely kind and humble person you were relative to the success you had. And in your world, that stands out even more than any world. Like your humility, right? And I think that humility causes you to not think everything's guaranteed the rest of your life. I think that has an element of it.
1000%, bro. I mean, I always say that the only thing God really wants is your compassion and your utmost humility. Because listen, as I say, we're all the same people given some of the same tools. Listen, some of us more than others, but we all have something that's greater than the next person to get us through this life. But you have to be able to identify that and magnify it over and over and over.
You said
You
God.
gotta know what you got.
Is faith part of your formula? I'm just curious. You said God earlier.
100,000,000%, yes.
That's great to hear.
Wouldn't be without it, bro. Couldn't be without it.
I love hearing that, brother. By the way, I'm loving this. I mean, one thing I love about someone who's been interviewed a lot, you can get through a whole bunch of questions and get a whole bunch of info from them in a short window of time. I'd like to know
you can just keep it real. You know, you can just be honest and tell the truth and not worry about, oh, what did I say then? What did I say there? No, don't worry about that.
I wonder I bet a lot of people be curious about this. And I wonder, what was it like? What is it like? Just take us on a ride for a second. You end up being a guy who's very well known in your world, right? And then you end up on this television show. That had to be a life change, brother. Like you go from being, you're very well known and respected in your industry, to now about every living room in the country. Like I told people you're coming on the show. Not one person didn't know who you were. And I've interviewed some famous people, but they usually go, I'm not who. Every single person, you went from your industry knowing you to everybody knowing you. What is that ride like? What does that feel like? Are you scared when that's happening? I'm going to lose it. It's going to go away. Are you just enjoying it?
It's a little funny, you know, but listen, I'm so blessed and so thankful and so grateful. You know, look, I mean, I was in my industry. I was doing my thing. I was an A&R guy. I was a session musician. I toured with the Journey Boys, whom I love to death. Still one of the greatest bands ever in the history of music. You know, I'd work with Madonna, with NSYNC, with Dylan, with Springsteen, with like, I mean, just dream people, right? And, you know, you often still say to yourself, what's next? And I mean, I went out on a limb and took a thing for the show. And I thought to myself, while I was sitting in my office doing A&R, it's got to be something next. It's got to be another way to really market and develop and break new talent, you know, and expose the world to new talent. So I took a flyer on this show, a gut intuitive instinct, and said, listen, I think this thing's going to be something. God forbid it really was. So I guess I kind of bet the right way. So to me, it was the next chapter in the evolution. So, you know, that's why one of my favorite things in life is what's next. Okay, I think we got this down now. What are we doing from here, Ed? Where are we going next, Ed? So, you know, it's that kind of a thing. Listen, I'm so happy that I was able to get in everybody's homes, because that's the real people. Because I used to say doing A&R was like playing God between the creators and the people. Because we're the ones that signed the acts, developed the acts, put the records out and said, okay, yes, this is good to go. And the people responded yay or nay. So who are we to say, are we to say? Ed, you may like something I don't even know you're going to like, because I don't really know what you ultimately like. I can think generally, Ed may like this, Ed may not like that, but I don't really know. So Idol was a chance to give the people a voice.
Wow. It also,
you tell me. We're the A&R guys, you tell me.
My observation of watching you all, especially when it was you, Paula, and Simon, and I just, that's the part where my mind goes. I think you have the elements that every great enterprise has. Great Chicago Bulls, a great company, a great entrepreneur. And I want you to talk about this for a minute, which I saw chemistry, energy. I think energy wins, like energy overrides things. There was a particular energy. Clearly the acts were a major part of the program, first of its kind sort of enterprise, but there was something special with the three anchors of the show and Seacrest. There was an energy there that had a chemistry that made it attractive. And I think sports teams have that. I think great entrepreneurs build that. Was that just like through good fortune, or was that something about you all three were different? What was that?
You know, honest to God, it was that we were all different, and it was just great, unbelievable chemistry and fortune. We didn't know, you couldn't predict it. That's what made the thing so great. It was such a great ride, because who knew? You couldn't have predicted that. Yes, Kyle and I were A&R guys. Yes, Paula was a star. Yes, Ryan was a radio star. But who knew that you could put these disparate people together? I mean, Kyle and I were sort of in the same business, because he was an A&R guy in the UK and I was an A&R guy here in the States. So what we did for a living, we weren't particularly artists. What we did for a living was find, sign, and develop talent. So Idol was a talent show, so that's what we did. So it's no surprise to me, or it shouldn't be a surprise to others, that a lot of that early talent was hugely successful, because that's what we did. And we said going in, if we don't pick and make the right choices and help America pick, we're going to have egg on our face, because this is what we do for a living. This is our livelihood. If we can't do this, no one can do it. So it wasn't like we were a star trying to get more exposure on a TV show, which you see a little bit more of today. And I think a lot of them love it. But this was our job. We weren't stars. We were A&R guys. We were company people.
On my show, I try to take this mega achiever, a max out achiever like you, and have them see the real person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like the real story. And the thing that I probably admire most about you is I'm learning about you is the kind of husband and father you are. And just the way I've also just observed you treat people. It's your humility. Like, you're genuinely one of the most humble, successful people in any field I've met. I admire that about you. Man. And I think maybe part of that is kind of where you come from. So you tell me about your dad, Leann. Yeah. Your dad was older when he had you, number one, but I get the feeling he was a pretty...
I got a brother that's 10 years younger than me, so my dad was 62 when my brother was born.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, my mom was keeping him young. The second marriages for both my folks.
Whoa.
My mom was in a not very good marriage her first go around. My dad's first wife passed away of cancer, so they met at different times of her life. My dad was 50, my mom was 30, and I think, he was 51 or 52 when I was born, and yeah, he's just a great guy, man. Great sense of humor, big people person. You know, he just always talking to people, loved all that. You know, you always think your dad's one way, but I look back at my dad, like he loved watching, like, we only had 3 channels on the TV, we never had cable, but he, like any of those celebrity shows, like, you know, he was always watching that stuff. He liked that stuff. He liked the gossip stuff, but you wouldn't really know that about him. And I didn't know that about him until I started making it as a country singer. And he'd be up on all the latest stuff that's going on in Nashville who's coming around me, and I'm like, Dad, it's my dream. Let me handle. Just enjoy it. Just come to the show and have fun. Don't worry about it. But my mom would tell me stay up late at night worrying about what's going on in the business and stuff. And the many nominations I didn't win.
Is that right?
No, but they loved it all. But he was just a great person, great guy. You know, he's one of those people I learned a lot through, just because, not through words, but just through. You never wanted to disappoint him. He's a World War II veteran, grew up in a small town. You know, just part of the great generation of people. And
that's a remarkable. Your
Americans
dad was a World War II vet.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet you that's something 80% of the people don't know about your dad.
Yeah.
But he was sort of a part of some kind of defining moments. I want you to picture little Dierks here, everybody, not this guy in front of, you know, millions of people. Because it'll give you hope. Number one, if your life isn't where exactly you want it right now, like everything's not in order, and you're going to see where he was to where he's gone, I think it's going to blow your mind. I think it's literally going to blow your mind. And then for some of you that have children that maybe aren't.
Do lives ever get in order? I mean, that'd be great.
That's a great question.
Has it ever worked
in
out?
small moments of order.
I think you're always fine-tuning, right? You never stop.
I do.
That's why I'm here. That's why I listen to you. That's why I'm here. I'm always trying to tweak it and get it a little more worked out.
So am I, by the way. I'm clearly a work in progress.
Yes.
Some of you might even have teenagers that are a little bit not on their A game. Your parents sent you to boarding school.
They did.
Did you need it?
I did.
What was going on? And what happened when you went there?
I mean, I threatened to run away. I had friends' parents that were going to let me stay at their place and not go. I mean, I had no desire to go to New Jersey. You know, eighth grade was a great year. I went to middle, you know, I was in public school, in Ingleside Middle School, and it was just such a great year. It was like, you know, passing notes between every class with all the girls and the fights. There was always some fight after school every day, and just like all the different characters and types of people packed in this 7th and 8th grade. I met my wife there. I know you met your wife in high school. Or,
we
so
did.
it's like junior high, and it was just it was unbelievable. You know, just such an amazing time. But it was also a lot of partying. I mean, I think I partied more in 8th grade than I did, you know, the first few years of high school. Oh man, we were every day after school. There was something, you know, drinking, people smoking before class, and it was a lot of fun. And my sister had gone to Culver Military Academy for camp and ended up going there for high school. So I think that's where my mom got into this whole idea of like maybe sending us off to be fixed. And so she kind of said, you're going to go away for high school. And
did it fix you or not?
Well, that's where I got out there. I was in New Jersey. I was the only kid from Arizona out there. Made some great friends. I'm like you in a way. I'm a chameleon. I make friends. I just can fit in kind of anywhere. I feel like I'm going to make friends no matter where I am. And I feel like my whole life I've been a little bit of I have a lot of friends, but I don't have necessarily like one super tight overall group. I just have a lot of great groups I get to be part of. And some of those friends from that school still have those friends around, and that's really where I got into country music. So it was a great experience. I was out there kind of lonesome feeling, just being away from everybody. And I mean, as far as my dad goes, there is some sadness there because I was 14, you're kind of gone. You know, I'm from Arizona to New Jersey, and so from that point on, the time I only saw my parents or my dad before he passed away was through, you know, Christmas vacation or spring break, and I was pretty busy in the summers. But it was the nicest thing I think you could do for your kids is to give them wings and go find your own life.
That's a kind of significant move, though.
Big
right?
move, yeah.
So
it's not Merle Haggard and growing up in a boxcar. It's a little different type of way of getting there, but it's the same idea of just like kind of being on your own and being totally rooted from, you know, pulled out from your roots and where you were from, and kind of trying to figure out what this world is and what you're trying to do in it.
I wonder if it dawns on you. I don't think it does. Like what's happened here? Because you're in the midst of doing it, right? I don't, you know, oftentimes, very rarely, whatever the good fortunes are that have come my way, I don't know that it dawns on me, you know, what the hell's going on.
I mean, I don't think, I think that you and I are talking off camera about people who've influenced us, like Tony Robbins, obviously your show. I have a lot of friends out there that have been successful. My friend Blake McCoskey from Tom's Shoes, he's a guy that's always looking for ways to, you know, how to just get better at what we're doing. And you know, I think when you do that, you spend a lot of time in the present. You don't spend a lot of time in the past. I rarely, unless like doing an interview like this is only their third podcast I've ever done.
Thank you for doing it.
Oh man, this is probably my last one. This is, I feel like you can't go out on top. But it's like, how do you know, it's like, I don't spend much time reflecting on all that stuff. When you do, it's kind of scary, you know? It's like you get into something, I'm sure all your businesses, it's like, you look back on it now, there's a linear line, you can see how it all worked out, but when you're on the other perspective looking forward, I look back on that now and think like the kid that was playing those bars and doing all those gigs, I was always present in those times. It doesn't matter where I was, playing a casino gig at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sun's beating down, I was having fun. I'm playing a gig. This is amazing. So I never really, but looking back on it now, it's like, gosh, I can't believe all that stuff actually worked out. What was I doing? Kid from Arizona.
Right.
Parents have no musical abilities. I chose to be a country singer. I wound up in Nashville. It's all very, it's kind of scary to look back at. So I like being in the present moment and focus on the
You said
future.
it to me last night. I think it's like a running theme with you is trying to be more present. I think it's one thing I want to do. I always kind of try to pull out little lessons. I think I just gave a talk yesterday about this, just oddly that you're saying, and I was in Ohio. I don't even know where it came from because it wasn't in my notes. But I was talking about how most achievers that I know are present, or actually maybe even looking a little bit forward.
Yeah.
And most people I know that are struggling in their life, if they were really being honest, are running an old story.
Totally
They're
running
looking
the
back.
tape.
They're running this old story. They continue to. Their life becomes almost like a boring book of one long chapter because they're repeating either like a previous victory. I was a quarterback in high school.
Yeah.
Or I got my master's degree. Or it's something negative that happened. Right.
Yeah.
My parents sent me to boarding school. My dad was an alcoholic. Like.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, this is a huge clue. Like if you got nothing out of today and you're going to get more, it's that where's your frame of reference most of the time in your life? Is it past, present, or future? The happiest people are present.
Yeah.
And achievers struggle. Most achievers struggle with becoming present because they're looking forward all the time.
Yeah.
And most people that are in pain or are not achieving at their maximum potential are in a past frame of reference.
Totally.
So this is something
That's
really
the,
huge for most of it. It's why, actually, when I do the show, it's difficult for achievers to go, okay, I'll go back for you because you're asking me. I'll tell you my old story.
Right,
But it's kind of uncomfortable, awkward,
and it's kind of not really. I mean, it's relevant.
It's relevant to the listener, but not relevant to you.
Well, that's really. I mean, all these stuff I said there. One's like, I think about a friend of mine, Jesse Alexander, wrote the song "The Climb" for Miley Cyrus, and that song's all about enjoying the climb. It's not about the destination. It's about enjoying the climb. Right? So that's a big thing probably for overachievers.
Yes.
I just reread that book, The Four Agreements, and that talks a lot about being,
Tom Brady recommended that to me.
Did you really?
That's his reference book.
That's his
so
thing.
you know,
It's
the Four
easy.
Agreements.
It's about this big. It's got 4 things, right? Your words and be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always try to do better. Those are the 4 things.
Yes.
But in the early part of that book, it talks about being your story. And I haven't been through nearly what so many of your listeners have been through. There's so many traumatic experiences, especially for a lot of women out there. I can't imagine what that's like.
Yes.
But I still would say it's your life. It's very short. It's at some point, if you're gonna have any happiness, you have to just.
You got to move forward.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to go there, but like
you know,
I have this thing that I talk about often where everything in your life happens for you and not to you if you believe that to be the case. So like my dad's drinking, and my dad's my best friend. He's been sober a long time. But it actually happened for me.
I heard you talk about that. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would literally not be doing this. I wouldn't have been pretty good at like evaluating. My dad would come home, I'd have to kind of distinguish, is it sober dad or not sober dad? By the way, my dad's my best friend, literally.
Yeah.
But it built these skills in me that when I went to work at the group home, everyone here knows my story, but it happened for me. But if you're always replaying it
for me,
if it's always replaying it as just the negative, it's gonna be a self-fulfilling prophecy the rest of your life.
It's amazing how, and I feel like recently this is something I've been working on, but it just like when something happens where you're always like, oh, that's damn. And it's like, whoa. And I'll tell my wife, I'm like, this could be a good thing. It's a prime example. The other day I was fishing in Colorado at my festival. I didn't have a fishing license, right? So I was on a private farm fishing a creek. I wasn't even expecting to fish. It was just such a random thing. My buddy Luke Bryan had been there the day before. He caught a fish on there. And so I had to go out there and try to top him, of course, the next day, and I caught 4. And I posted on Instagram. Really smart move, right?
Yep.
And I'm walking through town the next day, and I'm taking pictures. There's some local people just kind of checking out how the festival was, having a good time. There's a wildlife guy there with his camera. And I'm like, he's like, do you want to do this here or somewhere else? And I was like, my ego, I'm like, he wants to take a picture with me, obviously. Yeah, we can do whatever you want, man. I'm cool, we can do it here. He goes, do you catch 4 rainbow yesterday? And I said, yeah. You have a license? I said, no. He goes, do you want to do this here or somewhere else? So I got in his car and he gave me a ticket.
I saw this.
And so I posted it on Instagram, but I immediately took it down because I don't want to mess with Luke. Is a huge hunter and fisherman. So I don't want to mess with his whole situation.
Right.
He and I actually, well,
and now 10 million people heard it.
But I took it off Instagram, now they're...
Just kidding.
But, well, here's the thing. So he calls me, because I took it down off Instagram, but I forgot about it. It's still on Facebook and all that.
Yeah.
It's all linked. I'm not very good at all that stuff. And I was like, man, this could end up being a good thing, because we need to own up to it, and you need to, call the folks at Colorado Wildlife. You might make some friends there. It might be, be some, this is what you do. He is a hunter fisherman. That's what he does. This is gonna be. He's like, buddy, I talked to the folks over there, made some good friends.
Good.
It was a 10 out of 10 conversation. You know, they got it. I paid. Paid the. So I just feel like everything that happens to you before you could be something you turn before you, because you can kind of spin it all into being a positive thing.
The happiest people. If you look at any area
Not
of your
positive.
life, eventually.
I know people have been through horrific things, but you can turn it into being something that makes you who you are.
Okay.
The heartbreak you go through, that girl broke your heart, but it made you the person that you are.
I like to think that, I think you're right. I like to think that it should have at least taught you something.
Yes.
There's a lesson
It's the only time
learned.
you learn.
That's when you
You
learn.
only learn in the hard
And I'm a huge believer in that. And I think the happiest people don't wait for hindsight for that. They discover that in the present moment. Like one little random example is my dad's got cancer right now. And you'd think, my God, what the hell is good about your father suffering with cancer, right? But to be candid with you, I've looked at my own family as the time more precious now.
Yeah.
When the phone rings and it was my dad before, maybe every once in a while I'd be like, I'll call him back. Now it's like, oh, it's dad. I get to talk to him again. It's just made everything more precious. It's not that like this stuff's not cool, but like really, would I rather have a beach house or would I rather just be able to talk to my dad, right?
Totally.
So it's put things in perspective. So everybody listening to this, I just want you to understand something, because this is why I wanted Dierks to talk about, some of his beginnings. Your mess does not disqualify you from being successful. Your current mess, the current thing that you're ashamed of or gives you anxiety or gave you pain, you have our permission to set that down, turn the page, and start to write a new chapter in your life.
When I hear you sing, I don't mean to like float your boat, but I don't know if you ever heard this before, but you're really good at it.
Thanks. I was thinking about trying it, maybe as a job.
But talking about God, I was like, why do I sometimes cry when I hear her sing?
Oh yeah.
And I think it's like maybe there's the presence of God there.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
Yeah.
How much of what
so.
you have is given to you through a gift, and how much of it is that you've worked at it?
I think it's I think I came in with it. I mean, my dad has tapes of me singing at 18 months old, like full on, like could carry a tune, hear pitch. Like there's something. I did come in this world with it, and then I definitely have worked at it, and I've worked at it more in the last couple of years. I've been on the road my whole life, and with COVID, like I didn't sing really for 2 years. I made the record, but that was like here and there. And I was constantly like in quote unquote practice,
Yeah.
And so I've actually worked at retraining my muscle to build it back up so I can go work again on a consistent basis. So this is the first time in my life that I've really had to ever work at it. But yeah, it's the vocal cords are these tiny muscles, and it's like anything else in the body. Like they can hold inflammation, they can get tired, like it's kind of crazy that the thing there is in my body.
Yeah.
And I have to remember like everything else I do in my life affects that thing.
I would challenge everybody that they're going to go get your album, right? Go make sure that you go get God's work. And if you can get through that whole album without crying or getting emotional, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, you need to go see a therapist.
You literally immediately need to go see a therapist, because it's moving.
Yeah, it's meant to be. I mean, that's the thing. I feel like part of my gift is, as I've gotten older, what I've realized is to help people feel. And I know it's part of my gift to myself too. Music was always an outlet to be able to express the things that were scary to express.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's when I make an album, that's part of what I'm doing too, is helping people express things. And on this record we go into grief and rage and and loneliness and love and hope, and like we run the gamut. And I feel like there is something that kind of opens up when I sing, and I connect to something else.
You must.
Yeah, I do.
I think when I'm experiencing great art, even like a great speech, if I hear someone give a speech, but particularly like with your work, I find myself almost leaving the music from sometimes and like reflecting on my own life. Like I leave what you're actually saying for a few minutes, but the way you're saying it, the energy that comes from it, what I'm feeling, causes me to think about things that seem not correlated but are.
Yeah.
And I can only explain that that's a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
When that happens. I just want you to know you do that for me.
Thank you.
So we said that if you like don't cry when you listen to the album, you should probably go to therapy. And I want to talk to you about that. Because I talk openly about like different struggles I've had with, mental health or anxiety or worry. And I think it takes courage for anybody to do that. I think it takes extra courage when you're a public person like I am. And then I think it takes extra courage when you're a public person like you are. So I have to imagine, was it like was there a catalyst where you went, because you actually went somewhere for a while and said, I just going to unplug.
Yeah.
Right. So I heard you say something like you felt like you were permanently plugged in all the time.
Oh, I still do sometimes.
Do you? Do you?
Yeah, I do. I feel like I have this electrical current that runs through my body, which is maybe partly, I mean, if you want to look at the spiritual aspect of it, maybe it's partly like my connection with all that is that's coming through me. But I do feel like also with my nervous system and the way that I was on, I say it's been on stun since I was a child.
Yeah.
I mean, just growing up in the household I grew up in, there was a lot of arguing, and when you're constantly in that hypervigilant mode, and then taking that already hypervigilant child and putting her into a world where all eyes are on her 24/7. My hypervigilance has been intense, but it's it's interesting. I at 30, I just decided I needed to go get help. I was having horrible anxiety, insomnia, like depression, and I'd never been alone. There's always been someone with me. And when I went into this treatment center, like when the doors locked, like I remember going, oh my God, like I'm alone for the first time.
Really?
Yeah. And it was...
Did they take your phone from you too?
I don't remember if they did, maybe for a moment, maybe for the first few days. And what no one knows, actually, during this time, I was going through like all these dental surgeries. And while I was in there, I had 5 root canals.
Oh my God.
5 at one time.
Come on.
And while I was in treatment,
my
and they're looking at me, they thought I was like,
Sure.
they thought I was wanting drugs at the beginning of it. They were like, oh yeah, she's just doing this. And then they took me had to have a root canal at midnight one night. My dentist met me. He's like, yeah, we need to do 5. I'm like, see,
oh my
I
gosh.
wasn't asking for drugs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was like, it was just a moment in my life where everything was just falling apart. And I mean, it was the greatest gift, to be honest. I mean, we can never see those at that moment in time. But, and from that moment on, I think, I just turned 40, and I feel like these last 10 years have been my own journey of kind of peeling back every layer, and I still have so many layers to peel back.
I love that
like,
part.
Yeah, but I have more, I think now I have more of an understanding of all the little pieces that are how they all fit into this puzzle of me.
You think you know you better than
I do. I know me very well. Sometimes so much, that awareness piece where you're like, I'm aware of this, but I can't do anything about it just yet.
Yep. Yes, I do know.
Yeah.
What I love about your saying is that I sometimes have conversations with friends of mine where like that one moment changed everything, and I was never that way again.
No.
And I've had a few things in my life like that, but I find that most aren't. Most are like, I made progress there.
Yeah, totally.
I made progress. I chipped away at something there. And I think that's a really important thing for you to share, if you don't mind, is that you still have these proclivities from time to time, right? I think there are people like, I've gotten better, but I'm not all the way better. And then
is there an all the way better though?
I don't think there is.
I don't know if there is.
I don't think there is.
And I think we get, a lot of this kind of self-help world can also be just another way to shame ourselves.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And
exactly.
so for me, I've really had to notice that also.
Yeah.
It's like, how am I using this self-help world to run away from the core of everything? And also, how am I using this to stay in a shame cycle where I feel like I'm constantly trying to get better and get better and get better? And it's like, okay, when do I just
exist?
Allow.
Just be.
Yeah.
Allow. I'm wow. I hope everyone's enjoying this as much as me, because I'm right with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I even shame myself, like, who are you to be giving people all this advice? And you were up at 2:30 last night.
I did the same thing this morning, by the way. I knew
you?
I was coming to talk to you. I've had a rough morning, and I was like, you get this imposter syndrome.
Or fraudulent.
Yeah, you're completely fraudulent.
Yeah.
And I stopped myself and I was like, no, you're not. You've come a long way, and you have a lot to share from the place that you are right now.
Yes.
And then, I have a lot to grow, but it's not, I think my growth is just, I think you get to a point where, for me at least, I want to be better for myself. It's not about anything outside of me.
Yep.
It's like, I want to treat myself kinder, and I want to live a happier, more joyful life, and it's for me. And I think there's a big difference in that when that starts to shift,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
a really big change.
It's so true for everyone. Listen to this. There's too many times in my life where I'm making a change and I'm going, now this is going to be a good lesson for everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
It is helping me.
Yeah.
But instead of just being in it and like, I'm just going to treat myself kinder right now. And if at some point what I'm going through would help some other people, I'll do it. But I think we also get into this thing of, because we have good hearts, we want to help people all the time. Sometimes the most important thing you can do to help everybody else is to like care for you.
Yeah.
To help yourself,
Absolutely.
right? So you go away and you come back, and I'm just curious, like, does the anxiety manifest itself in any area? Like, could even be like coming here today, or
yeah, it
like,
does.
It does. So
It
you'll
does.
still, and what does it look like for you? Like, I don't really want to do this, or I'm not good enough to do this, or how do I
Yeah.
get out of doing this, or like,
Oh no, I mean, I definitely, well, it could manifest in all those ways,
right?
actually.
Yeah, me too. That's why I ask.
I think it's definitely kind of comes back to this like worthiness wound.
Wow, it's amazing for
I
you.
know it is pretty crazy if you think about it, because of all that I've accomplished in my life, but I do think that that's why I was so adamant about accomplishing so much, because I felt like I had to in order to receive love.
Me too.
And when you really boil it down, especially for myself, ultimately at the end of the day. And so now I feel like that's definitely quieted down a lot. And like I said, I can stop myself this morning and be like, no, you're like, it's all okay. Like, you can have all the anxiety and all these feelings of unworthiness, and you can still show up, and you're still going to, for me, it's like, I just ask, like, I trust that whatever needs to come through will come through me. And
It is.
and thanks.
It
And
is.
that's the thing. Like, for me, I've learned to kind of move that piece of me just to the side, not like out of the way completely, just move it to the side, tell it can be there. Like, you can have your space in me today. Like, you can be right here, and I'm also with you. There's another part of me that's here too. So it's a bit of compartmentalizing, and at the same time allowing it to be complete. Like, for me in the past, like, I used to never have stage fright, never have anxiety. Like, when I was a kid, I felt superhuman. And once I started to see my humanity, it changed everything. All of a sudden I had anxiety. All of a sudden I had stage fright at times. Like, I realized
About when was that?
my humanity. I would say it started maybe around 28. Yeah, 27, 28.
Me too. For me, it was when other people started to criticize me a little bit.
Completely.
Yeah.
That's exactly when it happened. My husband and I have been married for 12 years, but we went through, very public affair. And I mean, the press is just brutal, and especially for a woman, and especially for a young woman who they built up to be America's sweetheart forever.
Yeah.
And so it was like the ultimate story for them. And that's when I started judging myself through other people's eyes. And one day that did switch, and like maybe 32 or 33, I realized, wait, these are people's projections onto me. Like, that's not who I am. My mistakes, I'm not my mistakes, and I'm not who they say I am. And I think that it took me doing a lot of soul searching to recognize who I was in order for that not to be projected upon me.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Same with me.
Yeah. It's intense. It's an intense roller coaster.
Yeah. And by the way, this projection from other people manifests in your life listening to this, maybe the same way it does for Leann and I, but maybe differently. Maybe you're living someone's projection in your life.
Yeah.
Your parents projected a particular career on you.
Totally.
Or beliefs in yourself, or what you are or are not good at. They projected that onto you, and you've adapted it, and that's how you live your life.
Yep.
And so a lot of our lives, there's this whole thing, are we living in some ulterior dimension? We're not, but we are oftentimes just living other people's projections. And for me and you, it was like, wow, we were sort of achievers, and then criticism. And then I started to sort of look at myself as if maybe I've been fooling myself the whole time. Maybe
I am that horrible person they
right.
say
Maybe
I
I am. And maybe part of those.
Maybe some of it was true.
Maybe some of it was true for
and
me too.
some of it I was like, oh, I can see where I was kind of an asshole at that moment
Right.
in time. Like, oh, I didn't take other people's feelings into consideration when I did blank, whatever it may have been. I can look back now and go, oh yeah, like there were parts of that were true, but that's not who I am.
I grind every day. People ask me this every day. What are you doing? Like,
let me tell you something.
I want to know.
Let me tell you what I'm doing.
Yes.
I love what I'm doing. I don't do this
Look
for
at your
money.
face change. Look at
I
your
love
face.
it. Like, I'm just saying, like, if I wasn't doing this, I'm done. Think about it. I have the same hustle or even more right now than I had when I was a kid. I opened my record store at 19. I know what I wanted out of life. So now I always find a problem. So when I find a problem, I find a business. So, and that's the difference. So every time I find a problem, I know I create a business. And so, which a lot of people do it for the money. I don't do it for the money. I love it. I love the journey. This is what I love doing. So this will get me up in the morning.
I could see it.
I can't sleep at night because I'm thinking about, okay, well, it's no black-owned cereal companies.
Is that right?
None.
No major ones?
No major ones. Not with national distribution. So what I do, I go find posts. And then I say, okay, now what drives me now? I told Snoop this yesterday. I said, guess what drives us now? And he agreed to this. No black-owned cereal company sell through these stores, the Walmarts, the Targets,
getting on the shelves,
the Albertsons, getting on the shelves. So think about it.
Yep.
So getting on the shelves, somebody got to get taken off. And I start realizing, oh, we're in a cereal war. We got to grind even harder. We got to go 10, 20 times. Same thing when I got into the music business. This is the music business on steroids for me because when I got into the music business, they told me, oh, well, you're not going to sell that many records. Nobody's gonna buy your music. You country, you know, you don't sound the same like the East Coast and the West Coast.
That's true. You don't sound the same.
Okay, but think about it.
Yeah.
When you look at the Super Bowl champs this week, right? What they singing make them say,
It's true.
That was their victory
You're right.
song for they.
Oh my gosh! That's
Think
right.
about it.
That's right.
And salute to the Chiefs for the coach Andy for believing in me. He said I'm in his top 3 rappers of all time, and then to have. The players go when they're doing their parades. They go to show you how far we came. But we sold over 100 million records independently. We did everything that they say we couldn't do.
But you also got ownership.
Yes.
Right? It was 96, I think, you signed that deal.
Yeah.
That changed, well, not for everybody, but like that was revolutionary at the time. Most guys, by the way, this is just most people in life.
Yeah.
They just work for someone else.
Yeah.
And at some point, this was brilliant. And such a young man at the time. You decide, this man's on hundreds of millions of dollars. You decide, no, I actually want the rights to my own work. Basically, I want to be an entrepreneur as I work with
the thing about it, I want to be an entrepreneur because I've been fired. I had 2 jobs. One job, I worked at Bell South Mobility when they was a big company. They ain't even around no more.
Master P worked there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I worked there in New Orleans. Then in the Bay, I worked at Rimco, repossessing furniture. They fired me there. And so I'm like, maybe working is not, and I put my heart into this, right? And so that's why my motivation to people is if you don't want to get fired, go be your own boss.
Yes.
And so, and I watch so many people go through so much stuff as they work for these major companies, and then they get burnt the finger at to say, well, it's the reason you at the top of the chain, and now we got to say, okay, this, because look at right now, look at all the people that are getting fired with all these companies.
Yeah.
When Disney started letting people go, that let us know that something is going on.
And by the way, it's coming the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, isn't it?
Yes.
This conversation that you're listening to, everybody, is going to even be more relevant a year from now than it is right now. What about that? If someone was young, like advice to my son.
Yeah.
My son's a huge fan. Everyone's going nuts. You're coming on the show today.
Yeah.
I have every person. I've had almost everybody on the planet on this show.
Yeah.
You say Master P's coming on, people go ballistic, right? And every age, even coming in here today, people are like, hey, my son, what advice would you give him? So his dad's an entrepreneur. Obviously, I could take, just like you, I love what you've done with your sons, where it's like, hey, get your own car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've done all that too, because we could have raised them with a lot of comfort. But my son asks me this all the time, Dad, what should I do? And a lot of young people or parents will send this clip to their kids, so I'm curious what you think. They go to college. Hopefully they go to college, right? Hopefully they can get to a position where they go to college. Do you think they should go work at a company first, learn some skills, make connections, but have their eye on becoming an entrepreneur? Or do you think they should go straight into entrepreneurship?
I'm going to tell you what I think. And it's to your son and to anybody that's listening. Whatever you do, love it. Because if you don't love it, it's not going to work. You can't do what everybody else is doing. So I got one daughter, she in the music, she love it. I'm like, I'm not in the music business anymore, but I can support you. If you love it, you got to show me that you love it, and I'm going to support you. My sons play basketball. Like, I'm not playing basketball. I'm over with. I've been to the NBA. I know what that's about. I know the politics, I know everything, right? If you love this, only 2% gonna make it. So you got to do something that nobody else is doing. My son the other day, he had the biggest dunk of all time so far.
The son at Louisville?
No, the son in high school.
Okay.
At Notre Dame.
Okay.
So for this year, they calling it the best dunk ever. My son in Louisville is doing this thing to where, but I told them both, I said, you know what? Where you're trying to go at, only 2% make it. So just imagine that's how hard you got to work. So anybody that's doing something, imagine you thinking in your mind is only 2% going to make it with what I'm trying to do. Whether it's an entrepreneur, whether I'm going to go run one of these big Fortune 500 companies. But guess what? You got to start at the bottom. Yeah. Go be the janitor. Go work in the mailroom. Don't cheat your way in nothing. Like you can't cheat your way in life. So for me, all the fears you're going to feel. You don't learn from wins, you learn from losses. And so if you take that, you're going to be great, because that's all I do. Because people always see all the great things, but look, what about the Master P that had to live in the back of the store where I started at, that didn't have nothing, was hungry sometimes? You know, I live with my grandparents, because people make all kind of excuses. Don't make excuses.
You lived in the store?
Yeah, I lived in the store. At 19, I had my first record store. That was No Limit Record Store. That is a retail record store.
Wasn't Snoop? Snoop was one of your signees, right?
Yes.
And then he left, and now you guys have gone into business again. Am I right about that?
Yeah. So I signed Snoop from another company.
Okay.
We ended up being friends, and he's been my greatest student. Because he's a boss now. He's an entrepreneur. Snoop on every commercial. He's doing stuff.
Sure does.
I mean, he's creating all these business and brands. He's worth a lot of money. But the one thing about Snoop, he's the greatest listener. He like a sponge that want to absorb it. And that's what I love about my kids. I say, keep being a sponge. Keep being that sponge, because when you listen, they got a lot of people don't want to listen. They think they know it all. Don't be a know-it-all. You don't have to know it all. And so that's what I love about Snoop. He's a sponge. He soak it in, and then he go and create his own. So I feel like No Limit was a university, like a college. You come through there, you listen, you got what you need. You know that what I'm able to create and what I was able to do, take that and run with. I look at people and say, okay, well, what they good in? Let me absorb some of this and add this to my game. Don't be afraid to do that.
Well, let me tell you what I know about you.
Yeah.
Let me brag about you for a minute. Something most people wouldn't know. Actually, I don't know why, it just made me emotional. Because I just think good people, I think hard work and good people eventually win. I just asked Stephen A. Smith, I said, what's the difference with the GOATs? What's the difference? He said, their aura and their humanity.
Yes.
Isn't that an interesting answer? Their humanity. This is something people wouldn't know about you, but it's your humanity. One of the things that you're legendary for people that know in the entertainment business, is how well you treat people.
Yeah.
And I mean even people that have left you.
Yeah.
So in your business, if someone's a signee and they decide to leave, usually that company is ruthless with that person.
Yeah.
They're horrible to them, right? You, on the other hand, you were good to people. This is important. It's called relationship capital, everybody.
Yes.
That as you treat people well, it's come full circle. So Snoop left you.
Yeah.
Right? And instead of like, hey, you're dead to me, I'm never going to this and that, you actually celebrated his success. You were happy for him. You didn't hate on him. And it's come full circle as a student of yours, and now you're business partners. Isn't that one of, I don't know if you realize that about you, because it's just part of your
let
nature.
me tell you what my, this is how I treat people. I don't care about the money or nothing. If you want to be around me, I want to be around you. If you don't, I tear the contract up.
Amazing.
I'm not going to hold you back. And me and Snoop talked about this, right? So when Snoop left and went on and did his thing, I could have held him for a lifetime contract.
Right.
I could own everything that he have now and be in it with him. When you're good to people, God will bless you. That's why you see on my shirt it say God made. I'm not self-made. I'm God made. And so if it wasn't for that man up above, I wouldn't be here. I come out of the rootless projects that you ever could come from in New Orleans, the Calio projects. But my mindset wasn't like the other people that was in there. My grandparents gave me opportunity to go to school, sent me to this Catholic school to where I learned who God was. So I had different values. Even though we was poor, me playing basketball was able to get me on the team to get a scholarship, then get me to college. But I had to be driven by it. And they always say, faith without work is dead.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that, I said, you know what? I got to get out here and work. So when you asked me earlier, like, what keep you going?
Yeah.
I got to keep working. Long as we here, our job is not done. And I tell people all the time, where all the greatest treasures are in the graveyard. People that never finish what they need to do.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Because they think they got so much time.
That's good.
And so I don't live on that. It's all about having good people. And when you see people around me, you know, they got to be good. You know, I mean, if you see the lady that came in here with me, that's my business partner.
Yeah. Very sharp lady.
So
Yes.
think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So, but she don't get the recognition that she deserves, but we don't care about that. So it's like, okay, I don't care about color. She white, I'm black. It don't matter.
Yeah.
Like, we got good people.
Yeah.
And so
You got a good heart, Percy.
Nah,
You're a
but-
good
but-
man. You know, you're a good man. Like,
man, but I'm just telling you, like, that's them the type of people I want around me. So when I talk about Christy and I talk about, like, what we created, like, it ain't just me created. We created this together. We created this brand. And so we get out here and go to these companies, but we don't take no for an answer. We said, know what no is to us? Another time.
Another time. Later.
Another time. We be back. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. You know what I'm saying? We ain't taking no. They close the door, we coming through the window, we going through a chimney. Either she gonna get through one of them doors, I'm gonna get through, we gonna get to somebody.